permission and with Mariah's permission, I'll go ahead and gavel us to order here at 8:30 on August 26th for our committee chairs meeting. Welcome to everyone who has joined us today. And as Mariah just mentioned, of course, we are being live streamed and recorded to be archived on the TBR website. I want to welcome back our newest regent, David Bradshaw, who joined us for informational purposes earlier this month. His paperwork is now complete. The public announcement is made. And so Regent Bradshaw, welcome. And we look forward to seeing you in person next month.
Thank you so much. And I have been so warmly welcomed. It is much appreciated.
Thank you. Absolutely. Hopefully that is one of our hallmarks. So thank you for confirming that for us. And then second of all, to McKenna, as Mariah mentioned before we started the meeting, McKenna Davis, our student regent, has graduated from the TCAT Upper Cumberland. How does it feel?
Oh, it feels great. Hard work paid off for sure.
That's great. That is great. So, and as Miles said, you are always smiling. So you too will set the pace for us. So we're proud to have you on board, and we'll look forward to hearing more about what's up next for you as we move along.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, McKenna. So Mariah, with that, I think we are ready for you to call the roll.
Thank you. Since this is an electronic meeting, there are 2 questions that need to be answered by regents for the record. First, can the regent simultaneously hear and speak with others participating in the meeting? And second, is the regent alone in the room? If the answer to both questions is yes, the regent can simply answer yes to both questions. Anyone who is not alone should identify any other people present in the room with the regent. When I call your name, please answer these 2 questions. Governor Lee, Regent Bradshaw.
Yes to both.
Regent Burdine.
Yes to both questions.
Regent Davis.
Here and yes to both.
Regent DeWitt.
Yes to both.
Regent Gentile.
Yes to both.
Regent George. Regent Harrell.
Yes, and my son Wesley is with me this morning until school starts.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Hatcher. Regent Kastner. Regent Powers.
Present and yes to both.
Madam Chair Reynolds.
Yes to both.
Commissioner Reynolds. Regent Richardson.
Yes to both questions.
Regent Spurgeon. Regent Stevenson. Regent Barlin. And Regent White. Madam Chair, your board is assembled.
Thank you so much. So, and just as a reminder, especially to our newest regents, these committee chairs meetings are really a preview of our upcoming meeting in September. We do not transact business, so there will not be any votes taken today. We'll attempt to move through this efficiently because we do move into audit here in a bit. So I want to make the most of our time this morning and try to keep us on time. But with that, Chancellor, any opening remarks for us? Good morning.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this pre-Labor Day meeting that we have. Hope all of you are looking forward to a great weekend. Carol, if you could go to my first slide for me. I do have just a few items that I'd like to update the board on. I had the privilege on Thursday, August the 14th, along with Regent Nisha Powers, Dr. Reed, and Chris Perkins, to go to Memphis and to present a check to Catherine Higdon, the Senior Director of the Foundation and Relations at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, for a check in the amount of $8,700 in memory of April Preston, our former Assistant Vice Chancellor for Human Resources at the Central Office. And I want to truly thank each and every one of you that donated to make this dream a reality in April's memory. She was a generous co-worker and friend and continued to give past the initial deadline for all donations. We After we came back from that trip, we raised an additional $500, which raised that total to $92.50. So very proud that we're able to do that in April's name. I also would just like to remind everyone, as you know, that in November of each year, we conducted a campaign among staff to collect funds for the different charities that we supported. And over the last several years, that money has gone to the food pantries on our campuses. And April, again, was very passionate about this cause. So beginning this November, when we raise money at the central office staff, all of that money will now go to what we're going to call the April Preston Holiday Food Pantry Campaign. So thanks to everyone again who supported and made that possible in April's memory. Next slide, Carol. I'd also like to just give you a quick update. I think we need to go the other way. Do we have one on the nuclear?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll just tell you real quick. You may remember that in 2023, Governor Lee signed an executive order to advance Tennessee's position as a national leader in nuclear energy. The governor partnered with the General Assembly to create a $50 million nuclear fund to support the growth of nuclear-related businesses in Tennessee through grants and development assistance. Last month, I served on the Nuclear Workforce Training and Educational Panel at the East Tennessee Economic Council for Nuclear Opportunities Workshop, or better known as ETEC, with other partners who were working on the talent pipeline for nuclear energy. TBR colleges are actively supporting Tennessee's growing nuclear field through specialized programs in nuclear and chemical radiation technology, as well as training in high-demand fields like welding, cybersecurity, and machining. Pellissippi State's Chemical Radiation Technology program is already seeing great success with its first graduates preparing for a December commencement. Chattanooga State has had an Associate of Applied Science in English and IT, or Engineering and IT, with a nuclear power engineering technology concentration. This program is designed to prepare students for entry into the operational environment of a nuclear power plant. It includes 7 courses specific to the nuclear field, with selected courses preparing students to receive the Nuclear Uniform Curriculum Program, or NUCP, certificate based on maintaining a grade average of B or higher. The NUCP program is managed by the Nuclear Energy Institute, and successful completion of the program has allowed graduates to be waived or exempted from portions of required initial training once hired. Additionally, over 100 TCAT students are receiving foundational nuclear science training through a partnership with Rome State, funded by state and federal grants. These efforts help prepare a skilled workforce for both the construction and operation of nuclear facilities. To meet the nuclear industry workforce demand, we found it necessary to accelerate our efforts. Because of the great growth that's going to be occurring in East Tennessee, I have asked Teresa Duncan, the Vice President of Workforce Development at Rome State Community College, to lead our efforts across the state. Vice President Duncan will be guiding our work and leveraging TBR's existing assets and further developing partnerships with industry, state, and local organizations and educational systems in Tennessee. And Teresa, are you on the line? I'd like you just to show yourself. I think you were going to join us this morning and say hello.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
All right, Teresa's got a large background in everything that she does related to workforce. She's well known in East Tennessee, and we're very fortunate that she's agreed to take on this extra duty to now be all things nuclear for the system office. So Teresa, thank you again for agreeing to do this. And Madam Chair, that completes my comments for this morning.
That's a great report, and thank you all for remembering April in such a special way. So there's a hole in our heart from losing her rather. So, but we're honoring her in just the right way. So thank you for doing that. And Teresa, as Chancellor said, you are a force in East Tennessee, and we're so glad you've taken this on. We're very grateful to you. It's such a pivotal and important time in that industry and for the state. You're the perfect person to do this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Chancellor this morning or comments? All right, good work. Thank you both. Mariah tells me Regent Kastner has joined.
Regent Kastner, if you're with us, do you mind answering the 2 questions? Can you hear us and speak with us? And are you alone in the room? We might have lost him, Vice Chair Reynolds. I'll send him a
Okay.
text.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll try again. In the meantime, after that good report, let's move on to external affairs. Vice Chancellor McCormick, you are up next.
Well, good morning, everyone. Chair Lady Reynolds, Chancellor, and members of the committee. Today, I will do a brief overview of what we will be presenting at both the Workforce Development Committee and at the External Affairs Committee at the board. Carol, can we do the next slide? As far as the Center for Workforce Development update is concerned, Dr. Sisk and Tracy Cordham have been working diligently to put together the THEC required workforce hours report. As you know, that's community college workforce hours, and we will have a preliminary report. It will go to THEC after the board meeting, but just for a teaser, I can tell you, just like last year, we believe that that is going to be up this year over last year. So that's a great thing that we'll be reporting. And then the other thing we will be reporting is with the Center for Workforce Development, we do have new staff because of the funding that we received last year from the administration and the legislature to increase the work based on the need of what is going on with Tennessee Works at the statewide level. So those will be reported during that Workforce Development Committee. Dr. Sisk, if you're here, is there anything you want to add to this?
No, ma'am. I think you got it covered well, and I can confirm our preliminary numbers are up. Community colleges are up about 15%, and TCATs are up about 5%. We're going through that iterative review process from THEC right now. Normally, we'll lose probably 3 to 4%. So, fingers crossed. Our colleges continue to do a great job in this area.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Dr. Sisk, and let's move on, Carol, to External Affairs. So this is exciting. Chris Perkins in our office, speaking of taking on extra duties, Chris has done the same, and he is going to be serving not only with advancement with us, but he's also going to be serving as our liaison for athletics for all of the campuses. During the meeting and at the board meeting, Chris is going to give you all an update on the athletics across the state. I don't know that I have ever heard anyone do an update on athletics to the board. Foster Chasen may have long ago, but Chris is going to do that for you. So that's going to be very exciting. He's basically going to talk about TCCAA, who we are. He's going to highlight the 24-25 season, and then he'll give you a preview of what's to come for 25-26. So Chris is beyond excited to take this role on. This is the love of his life. The other one, besides his children, probably, it would be athletics. So Chris, do you want to add anything here?
Oh my gosh, I just want to say, I have 4 loves in my life. I have my family, I have my faith, I have raising money for, I love doing the advancement work, but I'm a nut for athletics, and I started my career in it. So just to get to follow these teams and liaison with them and let them know that we have somebody there that's kind of watching over and there to support them is just awesome. I was at Rome State Sunday for Rome State Chattanooga State soccer, and I'm going to see Dyersburg State's first women's volleyball match ever tonight. So I'll keep you updated. And we had a good year fundraising.
Yeah. So Chris is in heaven right now. So, all right, Carol, let's move on to the next slide. All right, legislative priorities. As you all know, every year we gather information from presidents. We meet as an executive team with the chancellor, and we vet everything that we receive from all the campuses, and then chancellor makes the final decision on what our legislative priorities will be. As you know, every year we present these to you for your affirmation. They are not for a vote. This year, we're going to go ahead and preview them now for this committee, but they do not have a fiscal ask attached to them yet. We're still working on that, but those will be presented at the External Affairs meeting. So Carol, let's move into these. Thank you. So first, the legislative priorities. One is Career Starts Here, Tennessee, a community college innovation partnership. John Williams is going to explain this one.
Thank you, Dr. McCormick. The Community College Innovation Partnership is a collaboration between TBR along with other state agencies and nonprofit leaders to help remove some of the barriers faced by community college students. It would seek recurring funding to expand some evidence-based strategies that improve outcomes in students, and I'll list a few of those. Help more high school students explore careers and enroll in high-demand programs at community colleges statewide. It would also ensure every student works with a coach who supports success in programs connected to high-demand fields. It would increase support for low-income students through completion grants, and it would advance college-led innovation in student success and workforce development. So that's just a high-level overview of the details of this project.
Thank you, John. The next one is the Community College Capital Projects. As you know, we received the funding for the wonderful build out that we're able to do with the TCATs. And now we need to turn toward the community colleges. We know that many of them are in facilities that are not conducive to technical training. They need to do updates on their buildings, and potentially in some cases they need new buildings. In just a moment on another slide, I will go through what those are, but that is what this particular item is. A faculty salary study. This is something that is, and Chancellor may want to jump in here, but this is something very important to her, and it was something requested by the actual campuses. We heard this from many presidents that it's time to do a faculty salary study so that we can see where we are compared to others on the outside of higher ed, and trying to look at how we can potentially recruit more faculty at better, pay. Chancellor, did you need to add anything to that one?
No, just as I'm sure many of you've heard, we're competing with business and industry for our faculty, and it's very difficult. So we've continued to hear from campuses that they are having difficulty keeping and hiring new faculty in. We know that it's time that we sort of looked at where we were and, how competitive can we be with regard to this. So we have not firmed up what this would look like at the moment. Alicia and I've had some good conversations about putting a process together for doing this across the system, but we want to be able to give all of the campuses the tools that they need in the toolbox to be able to hire competitive faculty. It is the key to what we do every single day. If we don't have highly qualified faculty, we're not going to continue to have highly qualified students being turned out. So we need to make sure that we are as competitive as we possibly can be.
Thank you, Chancellor. The next one is interesting. This is business tax incentives for industry teaching. So this wouldn't necessarily have a fiscal ask from our end, but it probably would have a fiscal component to it. But what we're thinking about is, and this again came from a campus or campuses, but tax incentives for business and industry partners who are willing to allow their employees to come into our institutions and teach, those people who have specific expertise in the field. So that is something that we're still working through, and again, we'll be presenting more information during the committee meeting. And then marketing for Tennessee Reconnect. We need to get more adult students back into our institutions, and we want to. And of course, that campaign has happened before, but we think it's time to resurrect that and to put a focus in on recruiting adult students. Carol, next slide. Okay, and then these are the priority industry sectors that have been identified by folks from the state level, but also from the chancellor and internally from our campuses. These are the 4 industry sectors that we feel we really need to focus in on. Again, we'll be working on what that looks like and how much money we would be asking for to support these programs. But as you see, it's what we all know: artificial intelligence, aviation, ceramic tile you may not have known about, but ceramic tile in the nuclear industry. Safety and security, obviously, unfortunately, we do need to continue to request funds to do what we need to do on our campuses to make sure that we're safe and secure. And then the TBR CRED program, which is the electronic learner record. This is something that is already being done at TBR, but we need to continue to do this, and we would need to request more funding from the administration to complete this project. Dr. Lemming, I don't know if you're here or not. I can't tell, but if you are, you're welcome to go further into detail on this one.
Thank you, Dr. McCormick. Yeah, we are launching that with funding from the state. We will be giving out our first learner records to students who are graduates this fall. And so we just need.
Okay. All right. And next slide. That is it, Chancellor, Vice Chair Reynolds.
Thank you. Let me do two quick things while folks think about any questions. First, I think we have Regent Kastner back and Regent George on. So Mariah, could you take care of our roll call with them, please?
Yes, ma'am. First, we'll start with Regent George. Regent George, can you confirm that you can hear and speak with us and that you're alone in the room?
Yes to both questions.
Thank you. Same for Regent Kastner. Regent Kastner, can you confirm that you can hear and speak with us and that you're alone in the room?
Yes to both questions.
Thank you.
Excellent. Dr. Fox, anything to add on the legislative priorities? I know this will come to the Finance Committee next month.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds. No, nothing to add other than obviously we'll have a little more detail on all these priorities and then the fiscal component to those in the Business and Finance Committee. And if I could really quick, because I did fail to put it on the agenda, but just to remind everybody and put on your radar, I will be bringing the executive incentive payments for our TCAT presidents and the chancellor to the September meeting as well. As you'll recall, we did the community college presidents in June, but didn't have the data from COE yet. So you will see those, but I don't have any formal slides today. Just wanted to give you all that update.
Thank you. Thanks for that reminder. Let's go back to Chancellor McCormick, Vice Chancellor McCormick, and see any questions on what Kim has outlined for us with more detail to come soon.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say you're right on target, Dr. McCormick, and I do look forward to hearing the details.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done.
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair, I've got two questions, please, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
One is, so are we asking for another $1 billion or $2 billion for the community colleges? What's our number? I like the billions. And number two, what's up with ceramic tile?
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, we're not looking at $1 billion, but maybe I think we're about getting close to $500 million in this request. We'll know, we'll have it solidified by the time we get to the committee meeting. Ceramic tile is fascinating to me. I know that sounds crazy, but well, Dr. Sisk, you want to take that on and talk about the ball clay mines and then what's going on in Middle Tennessee?
Sure. I'm sorry. I didn't know I was coming back on camera. I took my jacket off.
Sorry.
So if you think about no worries. So up in Northwest Tennessee, we have ball clay mines. In fact, probably 80% of the ball clay deposits in North America are found in Northwest Tennessee. And that's a key ingredient in ceramic tile. Another key ingredient in ceramic tile is feldspar, which is found in Western North Carolina. And so when you head kind of the middle of those two places on I-40, you land in Crossville, Baxter, Tennessee, where you'll see a group of ceramic tile plants. So it's a logistical kind of thing why they land there. Tennessee has 8 ceramic tile manufacturers, primarily centered around Baxter and Crossville, a couple in Southern Middle, one up in Clarksville. So Tennessee is great for many reasons, geography, as it relates to ceramic tile manufacturing. And so those folks need assistance in production technicians and skilled maintenance type position, something that we do every day in the TCATs and community colleges. So there's a bit of a marketing angle, as well as some 4-credit programs that we're going to be doing and some workforce programs. Right? We're going to do a DACM exercise, developing a curriculum exercise, because it's a very niche operation with particular skills that are unique to that industry. So that's kind of where we are on ceramic tile.
And Regent
Thank
Powers,
you.
I'll tell you that Dr. Reed, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying I'm going to lean into that for just a moment and say that this came to our attention through ECD. ECD started being contacted more and more by the ceramic tile industry and the growth that was occurring in the state, not only what was currently here, but Governor Lee and ECD have also been traveling to Europe looking at other companies that may be moving to the Tennessee area. So we are working diligently with them to make sure that we're providing a trained workforce. But as Kim led off and said, this is kind of one of those industries that's who knew Tennessee was well known for this already, and we need to help them expand their workforce.
And I was just saying that Dr. Reed put on her steel-toed boots and actually toured that ball clay mine over in West Tennessee. So she knows all about it.
That's great. A perfect example of the partnership with ECD and how it pays off for everybody. That's great. Anyone else?
Thank you.
All right. We'll look forward to more here in just about 3 weeks. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Absolutely. And talking about capital budgets, let's hear from Dick Tracy.
Good morning. At the June meeting, as you recall, the board reviewed the proposed capital budget request that we submitted to THEC for consideration of the governor's budget. After that meeting, THEC reached out to all the LGIs. One of the requests was to look at increasing the cost for inflation for the midpoint of construction, which would be projected a year and a half out. We also looked at the programs and tweaked some of the square footages. And so the outcome of that for our 8 projects was an increase in the cost from $449 million to $483 million. And so that will be what we've submitted to THEC that's going to FNA for the consideration of the governor's budget. As mentioned earlier about the nuclear academy at Roane State, we have received information from Roane State after that meeting. We've been working on a project. We put together a preliminary project that would include the programs that Roane State would be offering, programs that the TCAT would be offering at that location. And we're working on a site at the Roane State Oak Ridge campus. So we have a site that we can construct a facility on. Also UT will be in the building, as well as we'll be participating with the local high schools for programs. We have a meeting set up with UT and the ORNL people coming up soon. So at that point, we'll be able to solidify, I think, the programs in the building, the square footage. And so we'll be looking at adding that to our capital outlay request that will be going to the governor. Switching over to capital maintenance. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dick. Sorry. I was
All
just
right,
going to see if anybody had a question
Oh.
at that point. But keep going. We'll
All
come
right,
back
so-
for questions.
Okay, switching over to our capital maintenance, we were able to add one more project in for the consideration, but we still stayed under the THEC's formula for the $80,770,000. And so these proposals are being reviewed now, which next will be going from THEC to FNA. So that concludes my update.
All right. And with that, does anybody have anything for Dick? All right, good. And we'll get to talk about this a little more when we're at Roane State, which will be exciting as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chancellor Lemming, I know you're here from chatting earlier. I think you've got a couple of things for us today, but let's start with an update from Skills USA. Looks like we had a pretty good run.
You did. Good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds and members of the board. Annually I give an update on Skills USA at our fall meeting, but due to the amount of agenda items for September, I'm going to give you the report here today, not at the board meeting. So thank you for the opportunity to present on Skills USA, our college post-secondary year in review. This was a year of historic achievements, both in membership, leadership development, competition success, and industry partnerships. So I just want to share a few of those key data points and stories with you today. Next slide. We experienced a 12.5% increase in membership this year, growing from about a little more than 14,000 to 16,000 students across the TBR institutions. This growth was fueled in large part by our strategic use of Perkins grant funding, which allowed us to reach students who might not have had access before. And these students gained opportunities in leadership training, technical competitions, scholarships, and industry recognized certifications, building both their career and life skills. We are the largest Skills USA college post-secondary division in the nation. Next slide. We invested heavily in leadership development at every level. Our Jumpstart regional trainings tripled in attendance since their launch, serving over 150 students with foundational Skills USA training. The Washington Leadership Training Institute brought 69 of our Tennessee delegates to Washington, D.C., where they honed their advocacy skills and earned their statesman pins. And then the Tennessee Leadership Training Institute hosted over 160 students in workshops focused on advocacy, communication, teamwork, self-care, and concluded with the election of our 24-25 state officer team. And Vice Chair Reynolds was able to join us at TLTI this last fall. We also had our 59th annual State Leadership and Skills Conference in Chattanooga, which brought together over 3,000 participants from across 32 colleges. We had competitors in 113 contests, earning 890 medals, with TCAP Pulaski and Motlow State receiving Gold Chapter of Excellence awards. On the national stage, we had the largest college post-secondary delegation in the country. Tennessee students earned 52 medals, including 27 golds, along with 58 Skills Point certificates. And we won more medals than any other state in the college post-secondary division. Tanner Ashlock's election to the Skills USA National Officer Team as treasurer further elevated Tennessee's leadership presence nationwide. Next slide. Our partnerships remain a cornerstone of our success. We strengthen those connections with industry leaders like Nissan, Ford, Hiller, and Magna, ensuring our programs remain aligned with workforce needs. And we participated in the inaugural Workforce Development Summit, which contributed to national conversations about talent, pipelines, and career readiness. Finally, we were honored to achieve gold level in the State Standards of Excellence program, a recognition reserved for state associations with exceptional policies, governance, and service to members. Next slide. And as we look ahead to 25-26, our theme, Champion Your Future, is more than just words, it's a call to action. In the coming academic year, we'll expand opportunities for every Skills USA Tennessee member by offering Pathful. That's an online tool that connects students directly with workforce development resources, industry mentors, and real-world career pathways. Through Pathful, our students will gain access to training that includes industry certifications, and we're especially excited to introduce new AI certifications, ensuring Tennessee students are ready for the rapidly evolving job market. And as we champion our future, our goal is to equip every member with skills, certifications, and confidence they need to lead in their fields and contribute to Tennessee's workforce. So we're building not just skilled professionals, but the next generation of leaders. And that's my presentation on Skills USA. Happy to answer any questions. You can go to the next slide. If you want to learn more about how to get involved as a judge or how to attend one of our events, feel free to reach out to me for more details.
Heidi, before we moved on, I just think your report and the good work that's being done deserves a round of applause from the board. Thank you. Well done. Absolutely. Any questions or comments for Heidi this morning? Well done. That's very exciting news. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
So thank you. And now bring us up to speed on some changes we're making around our global studies.
Yeah, so kind of gave a preview of this last year that we were making some changes in some centers under the Office of Student Success. And one of those is effective July 1st. The TNSIS program that was at Pellissippi State has officially, the whole team has moved over to the TBR system office, and we now have our Center for Global Innovation and this global studies focus. And with that transition of the staff, it was necessary for us to go in and revise policy to align with our new structure. So what you will see on this agenda for the September board meeting, if you go to the next slide, is that we had an international ed policy that needed to be totally revamped. And so we have renumbered that to now be policy 30810. And it will, it's been divided up. It's probably the longest policy that we have, to be honest. The policy was divided up into several guidelines to make it easier for folks to find the things that they're looking for related to academic procedures, business procedures, student health, safety, conduct. So there's 3 guidelines. While those aren't necessarily approved by the board, the policy is. I just wanted to highlight that the policy's been, those pieces have been pulled out of the old policy, put into guidelines, and so we have just this more concise global studies policy that you'll be voting on at the board meeting. So that's what necessitated us doing all this work, is that new transition and creation of this new center. And we're really excited to have the team on board. And we have some really exciting things that I will share at the board meeting as part of my update about what we're working on for the coming year.
Excellent. Thank you. Chancellor, any comments before we move on to Vice Chancellor Reed?
Well, yes, I would just like to thank Heidi and her entire team for the work in moving this over. It's been a very smooth transition, and she's not teasing when she says this is probably one of our longest policies, but it has to be, because when we are talking about sending individuals across the world, we need to make sure that we have crossed every T and dotted every I to account for their safety and conduct and academic learning while they're there. And this team truly does that. Just very proud of the work they do, and love to see that this is continuing to grow and flourish as we move it to the central office to make it more available for students across the state.
Thank you, Chancellor.
And great work skills. Let me just say that too. Again, very proud of the work that our state does. We truly are the national leader in skills.
Wow.
That's been building over many, many years. But our team this year, I think, has knocked it out of the ballpark just as far as it possibly could go. You can't see that ball anymore. They have done such a great job.
That's great. That's terrific. I love it. I love it. So, well, let me, before I call on Vice Chancellor Reed, Mariah has just informed me that Regent White has joined. So let's take care of our housekeeping on the roll call.
Good morning, Regent White. Can you confirm that you can hear and speak with us and that you are alone in the room?
Yes, and I'm alone, and I apologize for my tardiness this morning.
Thank you.
We're just grateful to have you here. Thank you, Regent White.
Thanks.
So after that good report from Heidi, Vice Chancellor Reed's going to bring us up to speed on something she's previewed with us before and has been underway, but we will need to make it official soon with a proposed policy revision.
Thank you, and good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Regent Spurgeon, Chancellor Tidens, and members of the board. Next slide, please. I'm happy to provide a minor update to the TBR policy on technical college program review and approval. At the last board meeting, I shared the need for us to transition TCAT program approvals from quarterly public presentations to the 30-day program approval process that was already in use by our community colleges. This approach increases flexibility and responsiveness. It enables our TCAS to better align with workforce demands and employer partnerships while minimizing delays in program development. At that time, I also noted that would be our final quarterly presentation of TCAP programs, and the next review of TCAP programs that you would see would be in the 30-day program approval memo to the board, which you have now received in July and August memos. TCAP programs are now reviewed through this academic program approval, which is a 30-day process, which you get monthly as a memo. This is not a substantive change, only a change in timing and your format for review. All programs continue to require board review and approval. Board members retain every opportunity to ask questions or raise concerns about programs on the 30-day approval process. I meet regularly with members who request additional information, and if any program was not supported, we will remove it from the approval process and contact Regent Reynolds and Chancellor Tidings for further dialogue and more discussion. In accordance with that policy, all proposed actions are approved under the Chancellor's delegated authority unless a concern is raised within that 30-day review period. If no concerns are identified, the institution's president receives formal notification of board approval, and then THAC is updated to reflect the changes in the academic program inventory. Again, just to highlight, this 30-day program approval process only applies to programs already in the TBR inventory. In many cases, it just reflects a college's first adoption of an existing program or an expansion to offer it in the evening or at a new location. For programs that are truly new to the state, meaning no TBR institution has ever offered that program, I will continue to bring those to you as a board in a public presentation for more discussion. So in summary, this update simply aligns policy with practice, ensures timely progression of TCAP programs, and preserves the same level of board oversight historically exercised for the approval of TCAP programs. I'm happy to address any questions at this time.
Thoughts or questions? It does put a little bit more emphasis on us paying attention to these 30-day reports to keep ourselves informed, and that's a good thing. But I know that we all agree our ability to be nimble and responsive is, once again, one of the hallmarks of what we do. So this furthers that agenda. Hearing no further. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to speak from a TCAP perspective.
Oh, good. Thanks,
As a
Angela.
TCAP, we are excited about this change. So rather than having to, wait 3 to 4 months or longer, because, in business and industry, things happen so quickly. And so just having that flexibility to move quickly on new programs and new program approval it's excellent for us. Thank you.
No, thank you. That was valuable perspective. Thank you for sharing it. Anyone else? All right, you can read a little further. You can let Dr. Reed know if you have questions, and we'll be ready to move on this in September. Thank you. Thank you. We have one more policy change related to system governance today that Brian wants to preview for us to prepare us for this next meeting as well. Mr. Lapps.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Today, I'd like to talk about and propose changes to what is called the Development Approval of Policies and Guidelines policy, also known as the policy on policies. Next slide, please. The primary reason we're coming up with this revision at this time is that there's just been some growing I don't want to say concerns, but there have just been a few issues where the colleges and the system office don't seem to be on the same page as to the ability of colleges to have their own policies. So the primary goal of the policy revision is to establish the relationship between system and college policies, mainly system policies govern, unless the policy on policies says that unless the policy in question says that the college policy may vary. And then it explains when college policies may supplement system policy. I'll go into that in a little more detail on the next slide. But the second major revision and goal of it is to make clear what we're doing in terms of current practices and to align our current practices with what is in the policy, because if we don't have a policy that we're following, we ought to either start following the policy or change the policy. In this case, we're opting to change the policy. For example, revisions can originate and usually do originate with the system office, and that's a bit inconsistent with the policy on policies, which contemplates them arising at subcouncils. And then there's some things that are just kind of dated about how revisions need to be highlighted. Track changes format is now the standard, so we're adopting that. And then the third thing we're doing is trying to just simplify the policy to make it shorter and to make it clearer, and to remove some of the redundancy between what is in the policy section of the policy and the procedures section. Next slide, please. So like I said, a primary goal is to standardize policies across the system where necessary, while providing the needed flexibility to recognize that there are differences in the colleges and there should be differences in policies at times. So what this does is to make clear that system policies and guidelines are in effect for all TBR colleges, except under the limited circumstances permitted by the policy on policies, and that college policies and guidelines may not be inconsistent unless specifically authorized or an exception is granted. Colleges are permitted to link to or adopt system policies and guidelines wholesale, which is largely what the TCATs do, or colleges may create a separate version of the policy with no material changes, which is largely what community colleges are doing, because there are a number of especially academic policies at the community colleges that are not system-wide but need to be college specific. And the colleges typically have their own website and they brand it with their colors. They might change the numbers in a way they feel makes more sense. And that's all well and good, because again, at the system office, we want to have consistency where necessary, but we don't want to be overly prescriptive. And we do want to provide the necessary flexibility. Another change is that the effective date of system policies will be 10 days after passage, unless the board sets a different effective date. This will give the colleges time to get their policies in order, which they should be monitoring through the subcouncil process and through the presidential process. So no new policies really should be a surprise. But this will give them some time to update their websites and to make them effective. And then the system guidelines, which, as you know, do not come to the board, will be 10 days after approval by the President's Council unless otherwise set. Certainly the board has the ability to make policies effective sooner, as in sometimes the law requires that we implement them at a certain date. And if we've got the June board meeting, there might not be 10 business days between the June board meeting and July 1, which is when another number of new state laws go into effect. So that would be one of the situations. And sometimes we'll make ministerial changes, which are allowed by the policy, which is really fixing typos, making changes due to changes in law and statute and things like that. And sometimes those will need to go into effect sooner rather than later. And the way we let the colleges know that their new policies and guidelines is typically after every president's meeting and after every board meeting. The Office of General Counsel will send out a memo to all the presidents and senior staff then send it to their areas of responsibility. And so we kind of bombard people with say, hey, here are the new policies. Here's a clean copy. Here is a track changes copy. Please go ahead and update your websites and your practices as necessary. Next slide, please. So here's when colleges may modify their policies. When there is no system-wide policy or guideline that covers the issue. This largely applies in the area of academic affairs because there are just differences in how programs are run. That does not mean that colleges just do it on their own without any oversight, though, because those policies are run through academic affairs, and Dr. Reed and her team will get to review those college policies before they become effective. But that process seems to be working, and we're thus not trying to propose changes to it. There also was an understanding that colleges could have stricter, and I'm putting that in air quotes, policies than the system policy, which works well in some situations. For example, if a college wants to implement stricter financial controls than what the system requires, and thus keep a closer eye on their finances, that's fine. But there are certain areas where colleges, if they implement a stricter policy, will have problems. For example, the definition of a hostile work environment, sexually, racially, etc., is defined, and any college policies that change that are potentially going to create problems, including maybe a First Amendment issue. So we want to make sure that previous understanding that a college could have a stricter policy is not necessarily the case. So as a practical matter, how it works, like I said, in the academics area, there will be a great deal of flexibility with the colleges. In the human resources area, where a lot of the policies are driven either by state benefits, state law, or federal law, not much flexibility. In financial areas, more flexibility, because again, we're not trying to run the processes that have grown up over time at the different colleges. And if they want to have internal processes, that's fine. We're not trying to change those. Student policies, not as much ability to change, because again, there are legal considerations such as making sure we afford due process and making sure that we comply with the state laws regarding student policies, as well as the rules that have been promulgated, which colleges are not permitted to vary from. And then there are some times where a system-wide policy or guideline will call for the creation of a college policy. The tenure policy at community colleges being prime example. Next slide, please. We're also trying to make it easier to change non-substantive issues like the style. For example, if you look at all the material, a lot of the material that's been cut out of the policy in the procedure section, you'll see a lot of stylistic minutia about how to change things. Because changing policies is a complicated process, the current policy is out of date, leading to a little bit of confusion in terms of policy revisions. And when they're coming to our office, there's just different styles, different formats, and bringing consistency on the front end will hopefully drive consistency on the back end. So what we propose to do is take those stylistic and process type things out of the policy itself and put it into an exhibit that's the style guide. Because under the policy that is currently in existence, and as we propose to leave, those are not the type, exhibits don't require board approval to make the revisions. So what this will allow is for primarily our office to clarify and update non-substantive and stylistic issues such as font size, indentations, the process on how you get a policy if you want to revise it, those types of things. That will make the policies hopefully look more uniform, create less work, and make it easier to get those policies and guidelines into Policy Tech, which is our policy management software, so that they can be rolled out upon approval and consistent with it. So I believe that's my final slide, Carol. Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I am so glad you guys are on top of this. I know it's important. It's a lot to comprehend and read through. So if anybody has any questions of Brian on this, please don't hesitate to reach out by email or phone. But it is important to have this all together and it done in one fell swoop, right? Not that policies aren't living, breathing documents that we continue to pay attention to. Any other thoughts or questions for Brian on this at this point? And again, this will be before us at the September meeting for any further conversation. All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chancellor, I'm going to turn to you to talk about what's going to be a great meeting in just 3 short weeks or so, and then any closing comments you have this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. We are excited to be visiting with Rhone State and TCAT Knoxville in September. As you're already aware, it will be September 18th and 19th in Knoxville. We will be celebrating the opening of our new Knox Regional Health Science Center with a ribbon cutting at 11 a.m. on Thursday morning. Before the ribbon cutting, you'll have the opportunity to tour the building, specifically the simulation hospital and the new dental lab that'll be in this facility. Then we'll have lunch and our committee meetings, which will also be held on the campus at this beautiful new building. Then you will have the opportunity to visit the Oak Ridge campus for additional tours prior to dinner at the Oak Ridge Conference Center. Friday morning at 9 a.m., we'll return to the Knox campus for TCAT Knoxville and Rhone State's presentations. The full board meeting will begin at 9:30. I truly do want to thank Rhone State and TCAT Knoxville. They've been working diligently together to provide a great opportunity for us to come and see the wonderful things that are happening over in Knox County and Rhone State. So thank you, Madam Chair. And again, just excited to have everybody together in September so that we can go over all of the wonderful things that will be happening at the system office. As you heard Dr. Lemming say, she was doing part of her presentation today because when we sat down and timed out what we had for September, we were going to have to keep you for about 5 days. So we did try to do some things today because there is a lot of great work going on that we want to be able to share with you. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks.
Well, and I'm excited. I think we'll be like the first group into this new facility, correct?
Absolutely. There may be a few T's not crossed and I's not dotted. We've got Dick Tracy nervous about this one, but we are pushing the parameters and we will be in. We're sure that it will be inhabitable. So all the equipment may not be there, but you'll be able to see the great things that are going to be available to our students.
That's terrific. That is terrific. And just as a further reminder, if you have not already registered with Mariah, please make every effort to get that done by Friday, if you guys don't mind. So, well, with that, does anyone have any further business to come before the board this morning? We are finishing up a little early then. If there's no further business before the board, we will adjourn and I will hand the virtual gavel over to Regent Burdine to begin the audit committee meeting. Miles, do you want to take a break or would you like to keep going and let people take a break as they need?
I'll leave it up to you, Madam Vice Chair. Whatever everybody wants to do. Anybody need to make a head call? That's bathroom. That's bathroom. I'm sorry.
Why don't we just keep going?
Well,
Okay.
I agree.
Sounds good.
I agree. It's more efficient, that's for sure. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, let's move on then. As chair of the audit committee for the Tennessee Board of Regents, I'm calling the meeting to order. Madam Secretary, would you please call roll?
Since this is an electronic meeting, there are 2 questions that need to be answered by regents for the record. First, can the regent simultaneously hear and speak with others participating in the meeting? And second, is the regent alone in the room? If the answer to both questions is yes, the regent can simply answer yes to both questions. Anyone who is not alone should identify any other people present in the room with the regent. When I call your name, please answer these 2 questions. I'll start with our audit committee members, and then we'll check to confirm if any other board members are remaining on the line. Regent Bradshaw.
Yes to both questions.
Chairman Burdine.
Yes to both questions.
Regent DeWitt.
Yes to both.
Regent Kastner.
Yes to both.
And Regent White.
Yes to both.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum. I will check for other regents who may have joined or are remaining on the line. Governor Lee, Regent Davis.
Yes to both questions.
Regent Gentile.
Yes to both questions.
Regent George,
Yes to both questions.
Regent Harrell,
Yes to both.
Commissioner Hatcher, Regent Powers,
Yes to both.
Regent Emily Reynolds,
Yes to both.
Commissioner Reynolds, Regent Richardson,
Yes to both questions.
Regent Spurgeon, Regent Stevenson, and Regent Barlin. Mr. Chair, we are clear to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our first order of business is informational reporting, which requires no action. But Chief Audit Executive Mike Batson is going to lead us through this. Mike?
Thank you, Regent Burdine. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and good morning, everyone. We've got a lot to cover, so I'll go right into it. First up is our sunset audit process. And unfortunately, we had planned to have Julie Viejo. She had graciously agreed to provide some information this morning, but due to unforeseen circumstances, she can't join us this morning. So I'm going to try to cover her information a little bit if I can. And she had just let me know a few minutes ago, but she did provide some information that I'll forward on to the board after the meeting, some questions and things like that that are an example. But as I mentioned at the last board meeting, this time our sunset review process will be a Q&A review rather than a full audit, which as an auditor, Q&A review versus full audit sounds like a good thing. And Julie agreed that it is, should be relatively easy. The questions for the Q&A should come to the board probably mid-September, and they'll be due back to Julie at the Comptroller's office probably mid-October. And then our sunset hearing with Government Operations Committee is set for mid-November. That date could change a little bit as we go forward. The Q&A information that she was going to provide today was just an overview of the type of questions that they will provide to us. And those are kind of what you would expect. The board's duties, responsibilities, purpose, and overview of that. Of course, board members and board member information, meeting information. I think they usually look at the previous two fiscal years of board meetings, including attendance, whether there was a quorum or not, those type things. Organizational charts for TBR and the board, revenues and expense information for the previous 2 years, conflict of interest disclosures for board members, annual report to the General Assembly, just really basic information that you would expect. Again, we're glad to be doing that. Our last audit was about 5 years ago. While that went well, this process is welcome. If you have any questions on the sunset process, again, I covered it a little bit at the board, but I know we've got some new members, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Right, seeing none, I will move on. Highlights of audit findings and recommendations. A lot in your materials this time around. I'll just cover the high points. First, several new recommendations in your materials. We continue to make good progress on those. TCAT Memphis has a few recommendations related to accounts receivable and collection procedures. Those should be relatively easy for them to correct. Don't anticipate those will take a lot of time. 3 of the TCATs closed some recommendations that had been outstanding, so glad for those to be closed out and finished. And then there's several new information systems recommendations in the materials that we'll cover more in executive session in detail. Next up, I'll cover highlights from external audits and internal audit reports. Quite a few of those, again, in your materials. First, I'll talk about federal audits. There were 13 federal audits received this quarter. 12 were Veterans Affairs audits. For the Veterans Affairs audits, those compliance surveys, 5 colleges received no findings, recommendations, for observations. That was Cleveland State, Columbia State, and TCAT Athens, TCAT Dixon, and TCAT Jackson. So congratulations to them for those clean reviews. We had 7 colleges that had discrepancies. Those were Jackson State, Southwest, Walters, and then TCAT, Crump, Elizabethton, Memphis, and Nashville. I do want to note that those reviews, it looks like a lot of new materials, but when VA is looking at that information, they really have zero tolerance for errors. So where we might have a recommendation that we mentioned verbally, they're going to put it in the report for even one error based on what they look at. And again, those go back to, most of them were from 2022, which coincided with, if you remember, the audits that we did of VA information. We included several recommendations, especially for Jackson, Southwest, and Walters, that they did not have a secondary review for their VA person. It's usually one person. It's a very complicated process, a lot of volume, and they did not have anyone coming back and reviewing their information. That we had made a recommendation that they get that in place, which I think all 3 of those have now. That should help with those issues. But again, the timing of it was not good for them. Hopefully those errors will be much fewer. And the colleges that we have seen with more current audits, a lot fewer errors in terms of their VA processes. If there are any questions on those VA audits, I would be glad to answer those if I can. Next up, another federal audit that we had, a little different one, U.S. Department of Labor, the Workforce Opportunities for Rural Communities grant at Northeast. This one is a little different and can cause a little concern, but in May, Northeast had written to Department of Labor to request an early withdrawal from that grant. As you see in your materials, there were 2 findings in this report. One was that they weren't meeting their participant goals. As of December, they only had 1 participant, and as well as low expenditures. They had only spent $102,000 out of the $1.2 million grant, which started in September of 22. And this was a grant where they were working with several industry partners in the area to develop industrial control systems training. And the partners, and I think Northeast, had agreed that there was a demand there. This was to be either a certificate program or a degree program for an associate's degree. I can't speak for the partners or exactly what happened or reading people's minds out there, but there was a lack of participation that they did not anticipate. There was supposed to be employees that would take these courses as well as community members. Apparently the demand was just not there. And looking back, Chris at Northeast had provided me a lot of documentation, sort of background on this. It looks like Northeast and the partners did everything they could to generate interest, but it just did not happen for them. And so they recognized the issue and decided to go ahead and give that money back, which is not something you want to happen. But I think Northeast handled it the correct way. Just the things, this one did not work out as planned. Again, very rare that we see a grant ended early and money sent back, but wanted to bring that one to your attention in case you had any questions for that. Okay, next up, internal audit reports, and again, quite a few of those. I just want to cover some highlights here. If you have any questions at the end about any of the other audits that are in your materials, I'd be glad to answer those. First, as you remember, this year we've required an athletics compliant audit of our community colleges. We've had 5 of those that have come in. Walters, Pellissippi, and Volunteer State had no recommendations contained in their reports. Chattanooga and Jackson were 2 that had recommendations. For Chattanooga, it was conflict of interest disclosures and the timing of those. Coaches and other athletic department staff are required each year by January 31st to submit a conflict of interest disclosure And as we've seen at other colleges, that can fall under the radar and become late. Usually once those are asked for, we get those pretty quickly. But that was one recommendation for Chattanooga. And in Jackson had recommendations related to group travel policies, mainly that they were not always providing all the information required by policy in the authorizations prior to trips. And they have straightened that out also. Also related to athletics, next up, we had an athletics investigation, which audit committee members are familiar with at Dyersburg State. In this case, we had allegations about the baseball program and the coach. What we found was that the coach was using the campus's facilities to provide training to minors on campus without authorization and without reimbursing to college for use of those facilities. Did not have approval to have minors on campus. As part of that, he was also paying a small amount to a few players to help with those lessons, which was in violation of the NJCAA rules there. And we also found that he had taken his family on a team trip to Florida, let them ride the bus, and also kind of a side note that they were not complying with group travel policies and getting prior authorization and providing lists of all participants that were going on trips. The coach resigned at the end of our investigation, and Dyersburg, I think, is moving on. I think they've got an interim coach that's going to help out. But if there are any questions about that, I know that may be new to some of you, but I'll be glad to answer anything on those. Next up, Roane State State Audit Follow-Up Report by the Internal Auditor Cynthia there. For the new members, whenever State Audit issues a report with findings in it, our auditors are required within 6 months of the date of that report to do a follow-up review of those findings to determine if the corrective actions have been taken, or to the extent they have been taken, sort of what the status is at that point. Roane State, in this case, related to accounts receivable collection procedures, had a repeat finding for 5 audits, essentially, which is never good, obviously, but the follow-up concluded that they had taken corrective actions in this case, and that we think they finally got it straightened out. However, I will note this audit was for fiscal year 22 and 23 from the Comptroller's Office. Their corrective actions were completed sometime probably in the fall of 24. So the next audit period would be 24, 25. There is a potential that there could be recommendations or findings because of the lateness within this audit period. It really depends on how the Comptroller's Office looks at that. But it does look like they've got solid procedures in place going forward. So that is good news there. Next up, we had an internal audit of TCAT Memphis internal controls. There are several recommendations related to accounts receivable procedures and collection procedures. Just really some cleanup there that, as I mentioned earlier, I think that they will be able to remedy fairly quickly with their current staff. Another internal audit I want to bring to your attention, Southwest IT General Controls, another good audit there from Linda at Southwest. Don't want to go into too much detail, but there are some recommendations there related to the business continuity plan and information security training, which continues to be a theme with information security audits, whether that's our office or the Comptroller's Office. So glad to see Southwest trying to keep on top of that. That's the highlights that I wanted to cover in terms of the internal audit reports. The other ones, of course, are in your materials. Again, a lot of information there, but if you have any questions on any of those, I'll be glad to answer those at this point before we move on to internal audit updates. Wow, no questions again. Thank you. Next up, internal audit updates. Jackie, I think we can move on to the next slide, sorry. First up is, many of you are aware, Kate Walker has left our office, and we hate that, but she is at least staying with TBR. Kate moved on July 31st to the Operations Support Specialist in Government and Public Relations, working with Carol Tomlinson. We appreciate everything Kate has done for us the last approximately 9 years. I know most of y'all are familiar with Kate and her work with Audit Committee and the board, and she will be continuing her work with the board. And I'm sure Carol is glad to have her, and we're sad to see her go, but wish Kate the best there, and we will be in touch, and she's just right down the hallway. I think Kate is probably on today, but again, Kate, thank you. Just want to say thank you for everything you've done, and best of luck going forward, working with Carol in that area. So thank you, everyone, for Kate.
Congratulations, Kate.
Don't be a stranger. On that note, we have started a search for Kate's replacement. We have not gotten far with that, but the rest of us are trying to cover for Kate's loss right now. So we've also started a search to fill our new investigations auditor position. That's a new position that we received this fiscal year. We've got, looks like quite a few good applicants there. That position will be reporting to Jennifer in investigations, and as you will hear later on, we are very glad to have that, and I'm sure Jennifer is also. So looking forward to getting that one filled also. Speaking of positions, and another bit of good news, we've had several vacancies at the campus audit offices, but we have a new auditor starting next week at Motlow. Cindy Ray will be starting September 2nd. So very glad to get her. I know people in our office are a little familiar with Cindy. She's been at MTSU and their internal audit office for quite a while. Very good experience, very nice person, I think she'll fit in well with Motlow, and so we're very glad to have her and have that position filled. And so we will be meeting with Cindy next week once she gets started, and hopefully have her hit the ground running. But again, glad for that. We do still have openings at Cleveland and Walters. Walters State, we're not going to begin that search until Dr. Reyes gets in beginning of September, and we'll coordinate with him and his staff to get that search started to fill the Walters State position. One last thing that I want to note is, I think we had it up there. We'll cover that in a little bit, but management risk assessments and the information security assessments will be printed in non-public executive session. John Khaleesi will be providing his report on information security there. So I want to mention that as we go forward. That completes internal audit highlights. Next up is internal audit status reports. Again, this is informational report. This year, the majority of the audit hours that we had were for required audits, consultation, and risk-based. As we've discussed previously, we try to keep the required ones at a minimum, but we do have certain ones that are required by statute, the president's expense audit and things like that. Previously, we were up in the upper 30s, 40% on those. We've got that down to about 17%. I'm sorry, 30%. So down a little bit there, but we are increasing to more risk-based and consultation reports, which is what we sort of strive to, so we can be getting to the risk that the college and the presidents want us to look at. This year, again, the percentage of planned audit hours was over 70% completed for the institutions that had auditors for the whole year. That's a good number, up some from the previous 2 years again. Let's see, the risk-based audits, again, as I mentioned earlier, have been trending up for probably the last 4 years, 1, 2, 3 percentage points each year. So we try to keep that moving up. Next up, investigations. We had open cases at July 1st of 14, I believe. We opened 17 new cases, and then at the end of May, we had 20 cases outstanding that were open. We'll cover that more a little bit later on. Chair Burdine, this completes my information report.
Thank you, Mike. Again, no action required, but if you'll keep going on to internal audit plans for fiscal year 2026.
Yes, sir. For new members, the board or the audit committee is required to approve our audit plans going forward. Those plans start on page 72 of your materials. The only required audits that we have so far this year are a funding formula audit that we'll be looking at a little later in the spring, as well as required president's expense audits. And for our new members, we're required to audit 30% of our presidents each year at the campuses. And we do that, we have sort of a risk-based method to do that, but we have to do each of them at least once every 3 years. And so we'll be doing, I think, 5 or 6 of them this year. Those are in the fall, and that's one that we consider required as we go forward. Some other audits, of course, state audit follow-up that we mentioned earlier, if anyone has any findings. Hopefully not. Hopefully we don't have any of those audits this year, but that's always a possibility. And then some of our audits or some of our campuses are required to perform national automated clearinghouse audits each year based on their banking contracts. I think we've got 4 that complete those. Again, the required audits this year planned 24% down from 30% last year. That's a good thing. Continue risk-based consulting and special requests. We're trying to trend those up. So again, we continue those efforts. It's incremental from year to year, but we try to keep moving that needle forward. But Chair Burdine, if there are no questions, this completes my report on internal audit plans for fiscal year 26.
Thank you, sir. This section does require a roll call vote, so can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second,
Is that
Tom.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Burdine,
Aye.
Regent Bradshaw,
Aye.
Regent DeWitt,
Aye.
Regent Kastner,
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Next up is a review of audit committee and internal audit charters, responsibilities, and the IIA standards, Institute of Internal Auditors. Annually provide you with an update on the audit committee charter, which is on page 108, the internal audit charters on page 114, and then a chart summarizing the audit committee's responsibilities, I think is on page 121, as well as a summary of the global internal audit standards on page 122. We normally do this at this meeting, but with the Institute of Internal Auditors change in standards to the global internal audit standards effective in January, we had, as you recall, in the February meeting, revised the audit committee charter and the internal audit charter. Those were subsequently approved by the comptroller's office. With a short time frame, we have no recommended changes to those charters. And I won't go into a lot of detail on those since we did cover those in a lot of detail in February. So if there are no questions on those charters, I'll keep moving. We are required by law and by the standards to cover audit committee responsibilities, and those are in your materials. There's a chart in there. But the committee provides, again, oversight and accountability on all aspects of operations within the TBR, including engagements with the comptroller's office, authority to conduct and authorize audits or investigations into any area under the TBR, as well as at the colleges. It also requires that my position, the chief audit executive, reports directly to the committee and the board, and that the audit committee approve our audit plans, budgets, and investigations, audits, everything related to that. We're also required through the audit committee to provide a means of reporting fraud, waste, and abuse, which we have a portal on our website, as well as email methods for doing that, as well as portals on each campus's website to provide that information. The audit committee is required to approve audit salaries for the system office auditors in our office. It reviews staffing for our office, and then reviews and approves termination of campus internal auditors. So the campus internal auditors, in order to ensure independence, cannot be terminated without the approval of the audit committee. Those are some of the key requirements that are out there that need to cover. So want to make sure that you're aware of those. I covered the charters just a little while ago. I think I got that slide out of order, my bad there, but we don't see any need in changing the charters at this point, since we just did that in February. And then we just covered the audit committee responsibilities going forward. The IIA standards, again, normally at the August meeting, we covered those in detail, but last fall, as well as in February, we covered those in making the revisions. If you remember, we went into quite a bit of detail on the new standards. I don't think we have a need to do that again, since we've done that this year, unless there are questions or anyone requests that I go into detail about the standards or the new standards. I'll be glad to do that, but don't plan to do that here in the interest of time, unless somebody so requests.
Any questions?
Chair Burdine, that completes my report on the charters, responsibilities, and IIA standards.
Thank you, sir. This section also does require a roll call vote. So can I get a motion, please?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any questions? Madam Secretary, please call the roll for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to confirm, was that Regent Bradshaw with the motion?
Among many, yes.
Okay, great. And I have Regent DeWitt for the second. Thank you. Chairman Burdine,
Aye.
Regent Bradshaw,
Aye.
Regent DeWitt,
Aye.
Regent Kastner,
Aye.
and Regent White.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am. Our last section that also requires a roll call vote is back to Mike.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. I think that includes our
we're done. You're
materials for
right.
this meeting, sir.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this does finish our meeting. So it concludes the agenda for the public session. Unless anyone has any further business to come before the committee, the public portion of the meeting stands adjourned. And we'll see everyone in just a few minutes.
Thanks, sir.
Do y'all want to make a bathroom call or just keep going before we adjourn? Let's keep going. The end did this. Okay. See you in a minute.